recorded, and I understand we're streaming live.
Yep. There you
go. So the meeting is called to order. And the first item basically is to accept the minutes of January 19th, which were previously distributed by Stephanie. And some little editorial corrections were provided by Susan. And those were basically distributed. Are there any other comments on the minutes of January 19th? If not, I'll have a motion to accept the minutes of January 19th. It's moved by Susan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vicky. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is a long-awaited presentation, or at least overview, of the progress towards Bridgehampton Historic District, which our town historian, Julie Green, has been working on for a period of time. And she has a presentation in PowerPoint that will be presented. So Julie, will you take over?
I sure will. Thank you all for having me tonight. I'm going to share my screen with you in just about a second. I just want you all to know this is a very abbreviated version. I'm going to rush through this PowerPoint. I know you're all busy tonight and have a quite the meeting ahead of you. So I just want to let you know that I've shown this to the supervisor. This was at his request. Ed and I had started this a couple of years ago with some outreach, and the supervisor has seen it. I need to do a work session with the board coming up in March with this draft, and I just want to make sure, I want your input. The history and all that I've got. I know Bridgehampton quite well from working there for 15 years, but I need input on a lot of the guidelines. You'll see these guidelines, they're not codified. They're just review and guidelines for property owners as well as town boards to make review. Okay, so here we go. Where did it go? Is that it? Sorry, coming.
Here we go.
Oh, hold on. Looks like I have two up here.
And you just turned it off.
Oh, heavens.
Sorry. Take your time.
Okay, so let's share the screen again.
That makes perfect.
Charles, now it's not showing up.
So make sure it's on your desktop and then just hit the share button.
All right. So it's open now?
Yep, and now hit your share button on Zoom.
On Zoom. But then I don't see it here. What happened?
It's on your desktop, right?
Yeah, it's open.
Okay, that's fine. So now hit the share button and
Okay.
there you go.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Okay. Let's do slide from beginning. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is just the draft here, and I'm just going to kind of zoom through our historic Hamlet review and design guidelines. Table of contents. And anyone that wants to see this, I'm happy to share it with you after the before the 4th, before I go to the board for the work session. So the review part, of course, we need to establish Bridgehampton Main Street Historic District would be our first goal. And although we are the oldest incorporated town in New York, we are not immune from these trends of demolition of our historic researches. So this report lays out the advantage of establishing a district, introduction, recognizing the value of local historic districts. We've got quite a few throughout the town. We have Quogue, Sag Harbor Village, Sagaponack Main Street, Southampton Village, as well as within the village, North Main Street and Wickapog Road and Beach Road. So these are some of the structures, why preservation matters. We have quality, sustainability, energy conservation, economic benefits. So here's the World Pie, once when it was Basso's originally. Economic benefits, the cultural history. And then the report goes through the history of Bridgehampton from 1656 to present. The establishment of Bull's Head Settlement north of Mecox and Sagaponack, building of the Bull's Head Tavern, Wick's Tavern, the building of the bridge in 1690, giving it its name, the early 1700s when it was a whaling and farm community, the 1820s to the 1860s as Main Street grew, in 1870s when the railroad came 150 years ago, basically changing Bridgehampton forever. It was the terminus of the railroad for 25 years before it went further east into East Hampton. In the 1880s and 1890s became the heyday of the resort period. 1909 was the founding of the Bridgehampton National Bank. I can't believe that it's now Dime. The Founders Monument in 1910, street racing in 1914 through 1921. The community house, the 20s and 30s. Bridgehampton School was built. Of course, we all have the Hurricane of 38. 1956 was the establishment of the Bridgehampton Historical Society. Bobby Vans in 1969, 1970s to present. We have got a lot of work that's being done to preserve our historic structures, the Topping Rose House, the Nathaniel Rogers House, the Bridgehampton Inn. Okay, and then we go on to property, our Main Street properties overview. So this is kind of an outline of all the structures that would be contributing and non-contributing within the Hamlet Main Street Historic District. And this is kind of an overview of all the properties. So we're starting on the east end of Main Street, working our way on the north and south side. So you have the north and south side as we go eastward, or rather westward down Main Street. So the top is the north and the bottom is the south side. And majority of these structures, as you can see on the top far right, that is Hildreth and Hand that was built in about 1875. And you can see the newer edition of the street elevation storefront attached to it. But most of the structures are all behind the original, the street front. And as we go down, all the different structures. So then these are the design guidelines for the historic district. As I mentioned, they're not codified. And I worked with Sally Spanberg on some of this. Kind of what the design guides will do. The usual increasing public awareness, helping reinforce the character of the historic Main Street, preserve the integrity of the designated historic area, assist property owners and architects in making basic design decisions, improve the quality of development, protect the value of public and private investment. And the purpose of these design guidelines, as I mentioned, are to inform property owners and town review boards when considering design modifications to historic properties. And I like this one little quote about the Chester stores, which were built in 1928. The Chester stores were built on values and have grown on values. Courteous service and high-grade merchandise have brought the firm large clientele extending all over Eastern Long Island. We want to keep that feel. These guidelines are also based on the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. And we go through all different types of things. So all alterations on additions to historic structures, new primary buildings, new secondary structures, structures, new porches and decks and the like. All new construction. So the top photo here is the Candy Kitchen when it was standalone. And the lower picture shows its new construction. It was actually not that new anymore. This was done later on. I don't have a date on that. Okay, so these are additions to historic structures. What the Landmark Historic District Board encourages, what it discourages. So we have just standard size and scale, proportion, form and massing, orientation, rhythm and patterns, window and door openings, and that is a newly shuttered window on the Nathaniel Rogers house. Architectural details, this is the Chatfield house, which is on the south side of Main Street. Materials and textures. This is now, this was the original AMP, or Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, which opened up in 1916. The building was built that became DePetris Food Market in the 1940s, and now it is Sotheby's. The streetscape. Secondary buildings and structures. The building on the top is the carriage house to the Dr. Mulford's home, which is just north of the back parking lot of Starbucks in Bridgehampton. It's a wonderful home. This is a picture that I wanted to include. I thought it was quite topical. It is a picture of Dr. Mulford and his carriage, and in the carriage house at the top, that's where his stable once was. It's been converted into a secondary structure, accessory building. But Dr. Mulford was well known for the fact that none of his patients during the epidemic, the first flu pandemic, he didn't lose a patient. He told them not to travel. These are accessory buildings, structure that is significant if it was constructed at the time of the property's principal structure. So this is the barn of the Topping Rose house, the Abraham Topping Rose house. This barn is original to the 1840 main house structure. Demolition of accessory buildings, what the Landmarks and Historic District Board encourages and what it discourages. New accessory buildings and structures, encouragement and discouragements. Building relocation. This is a strong wheelwright shop. This is right on Main Street behind the Bridgehampton Historical Society Corwith House. This was relocated from Sagaponack, from Town Line Road and Parsonage Lane in Sagaponack. And it was brought to the Historical Society in 1962, and it will be forever preserved. Demolition, we all know how damaging demolition can be of a historic structure, of existing historic structure. These are two one from 1939. On the top right is Wick's Tavern, which was torn down to make way for a gas station, which then turned into a beverage store, if you all remember, and that's been recently torn down. The Tucker and Murray garage on the lower left was the Studebaker and Chevrolet agency, and it was torn down in 2016. And there's nothing on the thing. The fire department owns that building now, that property now, rather. And these properties are gone. They're gone for good. And what the Landmarks and Historic District Board would encourage and discourage when it comes to demolition and archaeological resources and excavation, and just a point of where you can go to find more resources. And that's the end of the first half of the Historic District review and design guidelines. The second part of this is all inventory resources, maps that were used, and guidelines and resources that I used to prepare this. So I kept it quick. So sorry if it was really quick. But if anybody would like to see it in its entirety to take a look at, I would be happy to send it to them. So thank you very much for having me.
Do you have a map that shows the proposed district boundaries?
It's, I do, it was on one of, let me see.
Slides.
It was a draft map that you had, I believe.
Yeah, it's just a draft. There are larger ones. It just I didn't put in the PowerPoint because it's made it so small that you could barely see it. But there's an outline. I can get that to you, David.
Okay. Just want to make sure we follow the code provisions for, getting I guess you're going to do a work session before you do a public hearing?
Yeah, the work session's coming up early March.
Are there any particular questions for Julie?
Wonderful. Very nice.
Thank you.
Was that the extent of the design guidelines?
Yes. That's where your input comes in.
Julie, I think I would like to see a copy of what you just presented. I would like to see some of the details of the design guidelines and just see,
Sure.
kind of how much detail we're getting here.
Mhm.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I just, for sake of time.
Yeah, no, yeah, we don't need to go over everything here in the meeting, but I'd like to take a look at the presentation and get better informed.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'd just like to take a look at it and get better informed about, what the details are going to be.
There's things that you would like to remove, add. That's why I wanted to present this, to get it for your input, because you are, of course, the Landmarks and Historic District Board.
Thanks.
And this is really the first round of discussion that is taking place in terms of coming here, going to the town board for a work session.
Yeah,
There
and
are more.
I do know that you're working on, criteria and establishing historic districts. So by all means, it's a work in progress.
Yes, and how it works out will be interesting in terms of having it come into play. So thank you for the presentation. It was
Quick.
very good, and
Quick is good.
Quick is good.
Could I see a copy, Julie, when you get a minute, and
Sure, Martha, absolutely.
make sure we can write you back? Because I have some questions from some landlords that have come to me and asked.
Right. So what I'll probably have to do is, everybody can email me. I'm just jgreen at Southampton, So please email me and then I'll send it to you. Or if you have Box or Dropbox, I'll get it to you. It's an awfully big file. Even as a PDF, it's huge.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. I'll include it in the email.
Where are you at with the petitioning of the property owners?
we are not at any place with petitioning in terms of having directly solicited any property owners. A couple of there have been a couple of approaches to the institutions. But one of the issues that took place was that in COVID period here, that meetings with trustee boards and group boards has not been possible. So that trying to meet with the trustees of churches and other owners have kind of just been put on hold. So we'll get to that, and it may be the case that maybe changes down the road would not necessarily require soliciting the owners directly for their petitioning for a historic district. And we've discussed that a little bit with respect to certified local government status.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since Ed and I have been out. We have done some presentations, but That's pre-COVID. So. Well, thank you.
Okay,
you.
thank you very much, Julie, and we'll be obviously in communication. You may have a bigger crowd now than in communication than you might desire.
I have to say, I love getting all your reports. I love seeing them. The work that you're all doing is phenomenal. And 107, I was just, reading yours, Susan. So they're great, and I print them out, and they get a file in the historic division. So thank you.
No. Okay, well, everybody has to keep that in mind now. They're permanently in the historic archive.
That's
All right.
Forever.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
Thank
We'll
you.
move on with our agenda then.
Have a nice rest of your meeting. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we'll first go to, let's see, do we have applicants who are interested in a specific permit review?
That was 109 Upper Seven Ponds. I see Joel Porman's here.
Okay, fine. Why don't we take that first and allow the opportunity for that to be discussed. Did you, Susan, did you want to do a little bit of a summary on that, please?
Sure. This is one of the Hildreth houses that is located in the Watermill area. It's 109 Upper Seven Ponds Road. And the central core of the house, the AYB for the town, says 1780, and that seems to correlate, I think, with what the application said, what the architect saw. And there is a wing on the west side to the left, 1 story, that there was an affidavit saying that was built around probably 1951. And that's on the left hand, the west side. On the right, east, mostly to the rear, but a little bit to the side. There is a addition mostly to the rear from 2003. So the central core of the house seems to date back to the Halseys, and most of that corner is associated with the Daniel, well, starting with Thomas Hildreth, but going to Daniel. And they had a sawmill there from the 1600s. They've been in that area since, I think I found in the Old Town Record Book, 1686. And the sawmill ran around to like 1881. But basically that area and that triangle has been associated with the Hildreth family since then. So there was Daniel the First, Daniel the Second, and Daniel the Third. Daniel the Third had a brother Shadrach, and he and Daniel the Third seemed to have split the properties up. I think the daughter got to live in the house and got a pillow or something out of it, but they split the properties up. And it's Shadrach's sons who ended up occupying this house. But according to the maps, I can't be sure exactly who built it. You can look at that 1838 map, and there is a dot on the lower side of the southern side, and that's 8 Upper Seven Ponds. That's where the Daniel Hildreth house is, the yellow one on the corner we reviewed before, stands. But I see nothing in 1838 on the southern side, nothing on the northern side. And when you go to 18,
Right, it is the yellow house near the potato. That's
when
the
you
one
get,
that we
what was
figured
that? Okay. When you get to 1858, the only one that you see on the house, I mean, on the northern side, is an S. Foster. So the possibility could be that it was owned by S. Foster at the time, and the Hildreths purchased the property back, even though they seem to own most in that area anyway. Or it's hard to tell with the dot because it's sort of there in the middle of, on the 1850, it's just right there, and you can't actually judge the exact location. but this is the oldest house on that side of the road. There's one farther down that you'll see later on, and it's where it says Wilson. That I think they give that one as 1880 for the AYB. So if it was an S. Foster, the Hildreth family there would have to be more research to find out if they purchased it. I'm gonna finish the town record books. I got through part of them. But by the 1873 map, you can see that Shadrick's son Nathan has the property. Nathan, according to the census, lived there with his family and his wife, I think it was Phoebe, several of the children. 4 children, and he was listed as a farmer and later as a house carpenter. And eventually after that, the property, and after the 1873, it went to his son, Oscar Allen. And Oscar fought in the Civil War. He was part of a volunteer regiment from New York. And he's etched in the millstones over at the village green. And he was a painter, a house painter is what it said. They didn't even have down any farming. So Oscar lived about 1926. His wife married to 1939. And after that, I don't have any particular records, except it appears that the property remained in the Hildreth family till 1993, where there was a Eunice Hildreth Gay. The property was with her family and her husband Philip, and it went to their son Philip Jr. And Philip Jr. sold it to a family. And there were a couple subdivisions in there, and I won't go through those because they're in print, but I would think it was Priest. I think the applicant probably, Mr. Perlman probably knows the number. Pisces, and they actually ended up with one of the parcels, and they subdivided it for the 109 Upper Seven Ponds to the front, and then Mr. Pisces built it looks like a large home on the flag lot to the back. So we've got a property with a court, seems to be around 1780. Mr. Perlman said that there was a brick foundation. We didn't, of course, go inside due to the COVID protocols. So what they want to do is they've been living there. They want to, and I did include the other maps, particularly for the applicant, because they can see what the house looked like in 1930 and 38. By 1954, the one you have up there, you can see that newer addition on the left-hand west side. So what they want to do is add a couple one-story wings on the west side. It'd be a front gabled addition with a foundation underneath. And on the east side would be an addition to enlarge the bedrooms, and also on that east side there would be a new entry, a side entryway back to the rear. Trying to think if there's any. Did I forget anything? I think I included most of all the things. Oh, they want to replace all of the windows. And Vicki and I looked at it. The windows in the 1951 section to me appear to be, they're 6/6 divided alike, but they have the metal, the latch, the fastener, like a brass looking one. They seem to be the same in the 51 section and the 1780 section. The windows up on the ones we could see on the east side, there was a set that actually looks older, but we couldn't see them that closely, 6/6 windows. So I did include in the report some links on window preservation, if they find any windows that are indeed older. The question I have is, I guess it's maybe concerns you might say. One was the cupola, and I think they had, because right now what you can see basically, if I included a couple of the photos, because of the screening you only see really the top portion of the house. So it's very understated. You can see the roof and the chimney. But with these larger additions, they may be, of course, they're going to be higher. And that pergola, I think, may be something that should be reconsidered. And the other was the height of particularly the front gabled section on the west. It's supposed to be, it's 1 story, but it almost appears almost not quite as high as the 1.5 story house, but almost. So I'm not sure if we have, of course, Bill, you always are good with suggestions by looking at things. And of course, Tim, Vicky, you were there also. If you had any suggestions or feelings.
Yes, Susan, it might be helpful to just show the architectural, I think we have them. They were submitted, the architectural drawings, so they could see the cupola that we're talking about and the additions.
That was in the one I sent yesterday.
Yes.
See if I can bring it up here, if I can find it.
It should be, say, overview of construction.
Is that where you have it? Is it the overview?
Yes, that's where I have it. I did
Okay.
that first and the history second.
Okay, let me see if I can then show this.
But while you're pulling it up, it's such a lovely property. They have the red barns in back that are being adaptively reused, but so subtly you really can't. They all look like barns. Okay, okay. Those were I included. You keep on going down. That's the house, of course. Those were that's the first one right there at the top. Right, that's most right there. There you go. That is the front, the proposed south view. And you can see it's the tallest section that has the chimney. That would be the 1780 section. And before, they're going to keep the wing to the left is what's already there. So the house is sort of, and they've chosen the linear fashion. That's the way it started. And they're going to continue that, except for that front gabled one in the west, the left will go to the back. But I was just, it was the cupola is the one thing, and then the height of the 2 new wings, if there's any way they could be reduced. They may lose some windows in the 1780 section by the one on the right, the cross gable section. And also I was looking at the windows on the west section. If there's any way to make those maybe more compatible with the other ones that are there.
I think that's the elevation just below that. If you scroll down.
What was that?
I think if you scroll, yes, there you can see the scrolling down. Yeah, the other elevation.
And that's the rear side. And there are a lot of windows on, and with the rear, of course, the windows are, will not be seen from the front ever. So that's, Bill, did you have any suggestions at all? Or maybe it's the way I'm looking at it, but with the height.
I didn't. I hadn't really studied it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost easier if you go up to the one right up above it, you see the front version. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, it would be nice if they had a before and an after sort of a view of it. We could see what they were doing and make more sense of it.
But what it is,
This is new. This section here is new,
yes,
and this section here would be new,
Yes.
exactly.
right?
And the cupola would be new.
And the cupola is new, right?
But the rest would be pretty much
The cupola can go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
you
not
mentioned
sold
it.
on the cupola.
Yeah, it's just, it's such a lovely understated, I mean, it's a very beautiful property that I think the cupola can go. Vicky, did you have any suggestions or?
No, I think that was our biggest concern, the cupola, and then the heights there. I thought that the west elevation showed on this where you were talking about possibly losing one of those windows. I think it shows, yeah, there's the west elevation, and I think on the addition you might lose one of the old windows, but we weren't sure. We couldn't
That's
really tear
correct. I
it.
think we lose one window upstairs.
And some of this is, I mean, architects, of course, know that they can tweak something and get pretty much the same thing out of it. And I wouldn't want to see you lose anything that's necessary for your daily living, because that's a thing that preserving a house that was as small as that one wouldn't be a near impossible situation unless it was moved and reused as a pool house. But it's going to be the central focus and the house that you live in. Those are the windows on the bottom. One's from the 1951 section and the other is from the 1780s, and they seem the same. If there are any windows, and they wouldn't be original, but they would be considered historic, and you and your architect could decide that, I would suggest you try to preserve them. But if not, then his suggestion is he's going to replace them with the 6/6 to match those. But
Yeah, of course. That makes sense. Yeah.
But if you go up and out as the original door with the transom, the porch that was added on to the front of the house was added on at some point. Of course, you can see the slate is newer, but even the porch itself, I'm sure sometime after 1780, and whenever they probably put the transom door in the 1800s, at some point, they did the porch. They have, the turn posts, but they appear to be new. I shed a little portion down at the bottom so you could see, the wood. But when you look at it, you can, and I think that the best picture was the one that the architect sent, that he actually drew the line, go, here is, in the application, here's the 1780s house, because he got a good wide view, which is hard to get. So I don't think, I would recommend, of course, objecting to the changes, just maybe making a few suggestions for changes.
Well, I think you've itemized the suggestions well enough, and it'll be up to the applicant to, take them as they will. But you have no objections, and does any other board member have comments on this project?
I think it's a great project that will help preserve the historic structure and make it livable going forward. So I think it's good.
Thank you, Stephanie. That's exactly what we want to do.
Right. Well, that's it. They're living there, and there's no way you could live in the 1780s house with a 1-bedroom sort of upstairs. It just needs to improve it, and so they can live there in comfort.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's very good. Susan, will you draft a response accordingly?
Yes.
To the building department?
Yes, I will. And thank you very much, Mr. Perlman, for allowing us to walk around your property on that snowy day.
Well, thank you all for your encouragement, and we're looking forward to doing all this. And I hope you'll come see what we've done when we get finished.
Great.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Good night, everybody. Get home safe.
Good evening. Bye-bye. Thanks for coming.
Okay. Charles, do we have anybody else who indicates application?
They just have, there's a few other people in. You just have to raise their hand.
Okay, let's see what who they are. There's nobody. Okay.
Carmine? Yeah. I think that's 106.
Mr. Garibaldi's here from 206 Lumber Lane. I can see him on the participant list.
206, sorry.
206. Okay. Well, we'll take 206 Lumber Lane up then. And Martha, do you had made a visit and did some footwork on this as well?
Yes. I think Mr. Garibaldi's here. He kindly let me walk around his property and take some exterior pictures. 206 Lumber Lane, Mr. Garibaldi's asking to extend the dining area. Do you have the application?
Let me see if I can get this up here.
The cottage is, Lumber Lane is one of the main entrances into Bridgehampton Main Street. And it's surrounded by an enclave of cottages, like-minded cottages that were built around the turn of the century. I'll just wait to see if Ed can get it up.
206. Yes, here we are. Okay.
So this is the cottage. It was, like I say, built at the turn of the century, and it was totally renovated in 2015. And it looks as it did then. We just have some pictures of it from 2002 and 2015, and it hasn't changed. And this is the back that he'd like to demolish this deck and extend the dining room, the eating area about 40 feet. It's about the size of the deck, about 1,200 square feet, and then build another 40-foot deck beyond that.
May I interrupt?
Go on.
Yes, we're not building another deck. We're building out 12 feet, eating up much of the deck space. And then we'll just have sliding doors going down to our lawn. So there is no deck off those doors. I apologize for interrupting.
Thank you for the correction. I don't be silly. And so I took some pictures, which I've passed on to Ed on this snowy day. And I think he's totally in keeping with his neighbors, in that you won't see any of what is being proposed from the street. Yep. And both of the houses to either side of him have been built larger in the back as well. So I would there we go. I wouldn't personally object to the proposal. I think he's definitely done the kind thing in keeping with the neighborhood. And I think it's very important because it's all of the cottages around it are the same period. And as Julie just explained to us, it was when Bridgehampton became fashionable as a summer residence. That's his reverse across the street. And the railroad tracks is just one up from it. So that's pretty much all. I'm sorry I can't give you more of the history. I did try and look, but there was nothing glaring that I could find, and other than what I've just told you, and for all sorts of personal reasons, my time hasn't been my own. So I would just like to say I think he's done a nice job. If you want to put it up, Ed, what is actually being proposed, and I would endorse him doing it. I don't see the problem. Do you want to add to this?
No, except that I think the cottages are kind of grouped together in size and character in that little parcel area just north of the railroad tracks. So they all were built on a very small scale. The neighboring cottages have been expanded over the past, I'd say, 7 or 8 years, mostly expanded by keeping the character of their facades and increasing the mass on the rear of the buildings. So this is what solution is proposed here for increased living space has been actually implemented by the neighboring buildings, which we've reviewed and have approved as well. So I have no other comment other than that, and I have no sense that Martha feels there's reason to object, or I have no objection at all to it either. Are there other comments from board members?
Nope.
If not, we'll file a response with the building department. Martha, how's your schedule?
It's getting better every day. I'm so sorry. My husband's had a big surgery, so it's been a bit of a drama here.
Well,
and I'd love to know how to do it. No, I'd love to do it. I will talk to you tomorrow, and you can.
Okay, well, we'll work out. Either you or I will do the response, and we'll figure it out between ourselves in the coming days.
Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you for being here and providing information. It's always useful to have applicants clarify sometimes the issues that are out there. So thank you very much.
Thank you again. Thank you again. Martha, much good luck to your husband. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Okay. Charles, do we have someone else waiting besides that?
Okay, just have to raise their hand.
Okay.
All right. So far, I see no hands.
No hands. Very good. Well, in that case, we'll proceed to 10 Baycrest Avenue, West Hampton.
Okay. This is a demolition application, and there seemed to be some question as to the date of the construction of the house. On the 1873 map, there are no structures on this property. Then again, on the 1902 maps, we can now determine the property was owned by N.B. Rogers, still vacant. And on the 1916 map, still owned by N.B. Rogers and vacant as well. The AKRF lists this as WH13, and they seem to feel that it was constructed in 1916 and owned by J.B. Cook, but that appears to be a property to the north of the subject property. So I think that may be where some of the confusion came from. The property is not listed in the historic profiles of Eastport, Spionk, Remsenburg, and West Hampton. Ed had found some newspaper records that documented that the subject property was divided from an undeveloped land owned by I.J. Rogers in 1938 and sold to Helen Elizabeth Ehlers in 1939 for $500. In 1940, Helen Ehlers married Harold Wilson Rayner, and they moved into a new house on Baycrest Avenue. So this sort of substantiates the 1940 date. Also, having visited the house, looking at the construction, the windows, the materials used, it really does appear to be more of a 1940s as opposed to a 1916 construction date. The application is to remove the main dwelling. The center portion is the oldest portion. The wings on the left and right, as well as the breezeway out the back and the garage, are all newer. I had no objection to the removal of any of the wings, left, right, breezeway on the rear, garage, because they were all older. The owner does have someone who would like to take the central portion of the house, and by removing the roof structure, move it in two pieces, not too far away, a mile or so, onto Depot Road in West Hampton. There's a cottage in the back, which also appears to be 1940s. I didn't get into it. It was unfortunately blocked by the snow. That has a later sort of a lean-to addition on the rear of it, and there are 3 sheds out there. The earlier surveys from 1975, I believe, from Rayner and Marks, yes, showed a shed in the back and a swimming pool. There are no sheds in the location of that shed, but there are currently 3 sheds there, and the swimming pool is gone. So there's no work for the sheds at the moment or the cottage shop in the back. All the work is to be done in the front. The CO says that the house is a 2-story house. The land surveys call it a 1.5-story house, and having been in it, it's really a 1-story house. The upper area is an unfinished attic, and the only way to get up to it is by a pull-down attic stairs. So I'm not sure where the confusion of the 2 stories, the 1.5 stories, and the actual 1 story comes into play here. The foundation is in poor condition. It's a block foundation, and I'm sort of assuming that it's water pressing on the outside of it. A lot of the mortar joints have let go of the blocks. They're horizontal fractures in the wall, multiple fractures in all of the walls, as well as some vertical as well, but most of them are the horizontal ones. So due to the size of the house, the low ceilings, the small rooms, the damaged foundation, I didn't object to the demolition of it, particularly being that the center mass, which is the oldest, and again, it's only 1940, so it's right at the end of sort of, you know, the age where we would even have a purview over it. The windows in here, as well as the windows in the shop in the back and the garage, they are single pane true divided lights, but they do all have a metal line jam liner, which again sort of substantiates the 1940s date as opposed to an earlier date. Yeah, that was an interesting one, the shower that had been added in the bedroom. That was added because the previous owner needed a more handicap-friendly shower, and the only place that really it would fit was in the bedroom itself. Yeah, the bathroom isn't in very good condition. The kitchen has already been mostly removed, and again, wasn't very substantial even to begin with. Yeah, there you can see on that one where the kitchen was removed.
Yeah.
Most of the floors appear to be fir. There was no fireplace or a mantle or anything substantially interior trim work wise. There are a lot of cast iron radiators in there, which are the current heat for the house, although there was a shot in here of a floor register for an in-floor furnace, which was, of course, no longer being used. So it would have been nice to know where the central portion of the house was being moved to and what their plan was for it. We don't know whether it's going to become a house or an addition to a house that's already there, or whether it's going to be used as an accessory building. So it would have been nice to have a little more history or a little more input on that, but we didn't receive any further information on it. Yeah, one of the sheds had a wood roof on it at one point, probably the oldest of the three, also probably the smallest of the three. This is the cottage shop in the back, which no work is proposed for at the moment. Unfortunately, I couldn't get in it to see what the structure was like. Here on the side, you can see some large doors going into it with a little transom light above it. And then you can see the lean-to off to the left there. Seem to be some homemade doors. And the windows almost look like they were stashes out of other windows that had been put into frames and put into that part of the structure. The structure probably isn't even as old as the windows.
These
Yeah,
hand-wrought,
they almost look like, sorry?
are they hand-wrought hinges?
No, they didn't appear to be, no.
Yeah.
That's it. So,
Maybe Harold made those hinges.
Right, we did learn from the history that he was making clam rakes and other things. Yeah, that'd be interesting if he had.
Yeah, I was actually in that shop back when it was just right after it had been used by Harold, and it was definitely set up as a workshop back there. He looked like he made all kinds of things back there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that he did a lot of this work back there himself.
So there is a chimney coming up through it, and the owner said that it was that there was a fireplace in there.
Yep.
Was it just a fireplace, or was he doing sort of some blacksmithing kind of things?
My recollection was that there was some sort of wood stove in there.
Oh, okay. Yep. So again, I had no objection to the demolition application, and definitely would like to see, because there is plans, or at least talk of plans right now to redo the cottage shop in the back. So definitely, I'd like to see that application again when they finally decide to do that work.
so that should be put in a comment on the response to the building department to highlight that possibility.
Okay.
Is there any comments from board members on Bill's report?
Thank you, Bill. Looks older. You could have fooled me from the outside.
Yeah, style-wise, it really looks like an older house.
And who knows, there may be, with deeper research, more possibilities for getting information on whether or not that was located someplace else beforehand.
True. Yep.
Okay, 800 Montauk Highway, Watermill.
Okay, that's me. This has been in the works for at least a decade, because the people owning that large parcel to the left have been proposing townhouses on and off for a decade, and then it it kicked back up. I don't know. I've seen it on the planning board for the last year or two. But since I was aware of these structures, even though I hadn't researched them, and nobody in Watermill seemed, that I had talked to about it, seemed particularly concerned about their demise. The only comment that I had heard was, and I had included it in the report, was on that commercial section, which I use the Google Street View, because to get a good view, you would have to stand out in the rush hour traffic to get that good of a view. But it's pretty basic. It sort of reminds me of the beverage place in Bridgehampton. It's been there forever, but this, of course, was car repair. But and the other thing was interesting is when I looked at the east side, it did appear to be a brick building, that it had some parged on it. The front has some wood on it, but it's in deteriorated condition. The interesting part was the rear. You can see there's a rear extension there in the back that the local, that one, the local report was that used to be the Hiscock blacksmith shop. And when the Hiscock blacksmith shop burned down in the 1940s, they moved that section over there. Now, what the local report was, if you look over to the right, that it used to be a bank building, now it's the architect's building. That's where they say, this is just oral history, is where the blacksmith shop used to be. But on none of the maps do I see anything on that corner. I did see Hiscock Hiscock was across the street, approximately where the Hampton Coffee Company is. So my guess, somebody said they moved it from across the road, and it was actually across Montauk Highway rather than Noyak. But Janet, agreed, and she got the interior photographs, because I heard that the blacksmith shop floor was still there, but I did not see those. They only sent 4 photos, but I did not see that at all. So that's the front commercial building. The AYB is 1920 for that, but I see a shop belonging to E. Jennings starting in 1902 in that location. So my guess that was at one time the 1902 building, the front one. And if you go back to the back, there's a house. You have to travel on back there, Ed, to that next building. And that one, exactly. And that one, the AYB is 1930. The local Watermill Heritage Area said it's circa 1850. And I see it on that same Jennings property around 1902. It said he was in real estate, so maybe he moved it there. That building, I did not go in it and didn't request pictures because it's condemned and it's in deteriorated condition.
Is he really?
Pardon?
No, that's okay, Susan, keep on.
Okay, so anyways, so I did go and I did walk. I took those pictures, showed them to you, provided the maps showing you where the approximate locations were. There was a blurb about the Hiscock blacksmith shop. It was in the Watermill Museum newsletter. There's something in the Heritage Area report. I only found a very, very few articles about, it was Oliver Hiscock, not Oscar. That was my last topic. Oliver or the blacksmith shop. The Hildreth blacksmith shop on Halsey Lane was much more well known. So that one you have pictures of and people talk about. That's where they hung, the whole community hung out. My dad worked there. I guess everybody worked there at some point as kids because they like to be there. But anyways, so I showed you what I found. I found a Burns cottage was moved to the Jennings property in 1900s. So it's a possibility it was that house to the back. He may have moved it there as a rental of sorts. Moving down to the articles, eventually we get to current times. And someplace in the 2000, it became Chariots of Fire. And I included the 2006 aerial that was stacked full of cars. And just quickly Googling that, there were a number of citations and arrests with that property. So my summary is that I don't have an objection, and I didn't even inquire in Watermill because from past knowledge, nobody objected to that. So, and they need to make way. It's part of a much larger development that's been in front of the planning board. And if I was going to object, I would have brought it up sooner. But I'm glad I got the interior pictures to say, unless it's been covered over, I do not see the Hiscock, like a wooden floor or anything of that sorts in that rear section.
The picture showed it in pretty poor shape.
Yeah, it's, no, there's nothing. That's those are the photos. They may very well have been covered over, just cemented, but it doesn't make any difference. And even if the floors were there, there's nothing I can see there that would be salvageable. So I have no objection.
I would have some objection if this was in my backyard.
Well, that's right, exactly. I think I have a feeling that's why nobody has an objection. I think they ended up with 38 townhouse units next door, and this is somehow configured. You saw the application configured into that. There is another property involved. It's not the one to the north, it's one right up above that. Not that you need to look at it. That I didn't mark it because we don't, well, there is a 1920 house on it. So if they're going to demolish that, I don't know that they're going to. We may be getting another application related to this project.
No.
So no objection.
So, well, I'm certainly inclined to agree with your assessment. Any comments from fellow board members? If not, Susan, would you do the
Yes,
report response?
not a problem.
Okay. Okay, 44 East Street, North Sea. It says Southampton, but it's North Sea.
I did not see this. I didn't do anything on it. Sorry.
Did you do a visit, Jeff?
No, I did not. Is this, I'm trying to figure out where it is in North Sea. I think it's in North Sea Beach Colony.
Yes.
Yes, I believe so. Yes. Let me see if I can.
I can do it tomorrow. I'm sorry. I just did not get
That's
to.
fine. I don't think there's much of much to be concerned with. This is the property here. If you
I
can.
did write someone whose daughter bought a house right near that. She's familiar with it. And she said it had been for sale and it was in deteriorated condition. I haven't seen it, but.
Right. So this is North Sea Harbor. Here's the property here. This is North Sea Conscience Point here. Just
No,
to
it's
give you.
down farther. It's the end of North Sea on Peconic Bay.
This is it.
But we're not seeing it, yeah.
Oh, you're not seeing. I'm sorry. Let me just. I forgot to screen share. Let me just put this up then. Here I am walking around North Sea and leaving everybody behind. Okay, do you see it now?
Yes.
It's up there.
Okay, this is it. This is Conscience Point down here, North Sea Harbor.
This is North Sea Beach Colony.
North Sea Beach Colony, is that what they call it?
Yep.
Okay.
It was established about 1915.
Oh.
But most of the houses have changed from the small cottages to
Yeah, if we get a blow up of the as you can see, this is a small house on a particular relatively large parcel, consider its size.
Yeah.
And it seems to be among the older ones that are to be found there.
Yeah, it does.
Let me just bring up an oblique image of it.
The house they're proposing looks large, but I guess the other ones are also, so.
Well, you get a better. Do you see the
Yeah.
oblique image? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. So it's very small compared
Is it
to
one
the
story?
buildings around. I don't think there's any really historic character to the neighborhood of
No.
no.
There are a few intermittent ones in there, but you'd have
I've
to,
been in there and it's not much of anything. Because I used to know the person who had the property next to it. It's probably like circa early 50s, late 40s.
Yeah.
the 1920.
Well, maybe part of it is.
No. So basically, you know, I don't think it displays much.
Nothing original.
Yeah, nothing stylistically significant.
Doesn't signify the cottage style. It's just like a child's drawing of a house.
No. Any applications just to replace it with a new, larger structure? So I'm not inclined myself to think that there's anything that we should be objecting to on this.
No, I don't think so.
Are there any comments from other board members about this? If not, we'll respond to the building department that we have no objection to the proposed plans.
Okay.
And I'll file a response on that, Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. 4 Wickatuck Drive, Noyak. We have been here before in 2017 when we reviewed it with no objection. There it is. This is Noyak Beach, Noyak Road, where it meets Long Beach Road. And this stands at the intersection of the highway, as you can see.
Is it a bit on a hill?
I think it's, yeah, elevated a little bit, yes.
Up.
We could take a peek at it here. I guess it doesn't show much of
Yeah.
whether it's on a hill or not. But
Look at that. Okay.
this would be it.
Yeah.
So it's a renovation that they're proposing. I forget what it is. Is it
Second floor addition at
second floor
rear.
addition with bedrooms?
Yeah, to the rear of the residence.
Right. So
Blocking people's views.
Plus stairs and
Yeah.
get there.
so we didn't find it formally of. I forget what the proposal was back in 2017. But it's not a historic resource of any kind.
No,
Oh,
it clearly has been previously modified.
I think this has to do with scale here. Yes. Now you get a better picture of it here. This is the house here.
no, it can't be. It must be the one.
Is it?
Must be the one over here to the left.
Yeah, I think it's the one to the left.
That
Here.
one.
Yeah.
That's not on Wickatuck. That's on Long Beach Lane. Wickatuck's up there. Maybe that's right.
Let me see if we get a picture from the application, just to make sure.
There's the one to the right. And
Let's say it's already a two-story house anyway, that one right there.
according to this, it's on the left-hand side of Wickatuck.
Is on Noyak Road and Wickatuck Drive, a corner property.
Yep.
Right, but it's on the right. When you turn that corner, it's on the left. Unless the work's already complete and that's that house that you're seeing.
Doesn't have a second story on it yet.
Yeah, this is the previous.
Yeah, it's hilly.
And it's right on the corner of Wickatuck and Noyak. So getting back to the view, this is the house. It looks like it's been worked on.
This one or that one?
This one.
This one and the picture you showed don't look anything alike. I mean, I know this. I know that house because I turn there a lot. The picture that they submitted, but that's not Wickatuck. That's Long
Right.
Beach Lane. Yeah. What
Long
about
Beach Lane.
other side? The other side of Wickatuck corner?
Shouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't know. It said it said it's on the left side of Wickatuck, according to this map they provided, the survey.
Yeah, and when you look at the
And
application,
extensively, the one that is in the space it should be, has been extensively renovated and has a full second floor now on it anyway.
It actually looks like it looks like it's completed to me.
But it's been like that for years. At least 10 years.
It says proposed work to add 2 small bedrooms, and then provides pictures taken during the summer in the application. If you look at the application here.
That is not the house. That's not the same house.
Somebody has done windows in this house because they got the stickers in.
The interior looks all done.
Yeah.
It doesn't. This exterior doesn't look like the.
No.
No, it doesn't look like the exterior of that house.
Yeah.
Or the interior of that house.
That may have been the former garage, that thing that looks like a cottage. That's a possibility.
Let me just take a look at we have 2020. We have 2020 versus earlier pictures here.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at earlier picture, 2018. That's 2018. So,
Quick thing, doesn't this street go around in a circle? Are we looking at the wrong end?
I think we're looking at Long Beach Lane as the.
Can you scroll up just to humor me?
But what if that house on the corner is number 2 and the one in? It would be, but he did say it was on the corner, right?
Can you just scroll up?
And
because that seems.
I'm looking at an aerial and the street goes in a horseshoe.
You look the aerial.
It seems that Wicketut Drive goes in a semicircle. So if
you're breaking up a little bit in the sound. Yeah.
Sorry. Scroll up and see if the other end of Wicketut Drive matches what we're looking for. Not further in, still on Noyak Road. It looks like the road lets out.
You know, I think Wicketut comes out twice onto Noyak Road.
It does come out, you're right. It comes out on the other, you're right. I forgot about that. It comes out
Circle.
twice.
Yeah.
There, okay.
Oh, much better. Oh, I remember when we looked at.
So it would be this house here.
Yes, yes, we looked at it.
Right.
And they did do some work, but it looks like they want to do more.
Now, it's interesting because in the GIS system, I put in 4 Wicketut, and it took me to the other house.
Oh. Huh.
Doesn't happen very often.
Let's see if that happens. Here again.
When I put in for Wicketut, it comes up as 3695 Noyak Road. So it's a corner lot. It has two addresses. And this property on the tax rolls was owned by a Bruno.
Right, okay, all right. So it's this house here.
Mhm.
It's the one on the corner.
Right, yeah.
They had a stop work order a few years ago because they started work without permits.
This house here.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, they put the black windows in.
So, okay, mystery solved. The mystery of the two Wickatuck drives. The house has been redone, I guess, in the past as well, as many of the houses have been in this area. Are there any comments about the proposed renovations for a second story addition?
Nope.
No.
No? Okay, if not, we'll report we don't have an objection. And I'll send in the response. 2434 Montauk Highway, Bridgehampton, was a proposed renovation to basically excavate a basement under a retail store that had been in business on Bridgehampton Main Street. It didn't, after talking with Susan and Stephanie, didn't have any exterior impacts. And so we agreed to report to the building department that we would pass on further review of that building. 71 Scots Landing Road.
Okay, I did go by this one. It's I guess it was a basic Cape Cod, and they added some wings and a dormer. And they don't want to make it bigger. They just want to make the upstairs bigger. And the dormer right now is not all the way across the back. They want, and that faces the water. And they want to make the dormer all the way across. You know, the dormer looks very 1950s, like you can't get out of the windows because they're too small. So I don't think that we're losing anything there. The front of the house has already been remodeled looking. I mean, it looks too perfect to be, and the windows are all new. I know that. And the siding is not original.
This is the house,
Is that it?
or is it this one here?
No, I think you were right. I think you're right. I think that's it.
This is it. Yeah.
That's the dormer up there, yeah. Funny, it looks less big in person, but I see the two front wings. Yeah, they just want to gain like 3 feet of space on each side. It's very awkward for them to partition their basement, given where their second floor, given where their stair is. So there's no really proposed changes to the outside and the front. Well, if you consider the water side, the front, there are changes. There's the dormer is going to be bigger and have probably more windows in it. It does have a nice view.
Well, I don't see anything that
I don't see anything to object to.
suggests any historic value to it.
No, it's already.
Any comments from colleague board members?
Nope.
If not, we'll recommend no objection then. And Jeff, can you
Yes.
pass on the recommendation?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Upper Seven Ponds Road, we've already done. 27 Lockwood Avenue, Bridgehampton is a proposed renovation to a house that has a stucco character to it.
I kept thinking we reviewed this one before, but I couldn't find it, so I.
Yes, we did have
Yeah, we
a
did. in Lockwood.
previous application for,
That was it. Just our opinion. Is that the one that they just wanted our opinion on and not a, I couldn't find it under.
okay, let me get this here. So proposed addition, interior expansion of space, wood shingle roof, white stucco, enlarge the kitchen, convert a two-car garage into a library, and existing attic space into the living space. This stucco house I believe it's been remodeled before. This would be probably the garage area being converted to library. Let me see if I can bring up the aerial.
Addition's not that big. No. It's only 8 feet wide and 21 feet long.
This is I don't know, there's no,
They're filling in that back corner, the corner to the right.
Yep.
there's no oblique picture for this property.
It's probably the least seen part of the property where they're adding on to, so at least it won't be seen from the road. And
No.
Basically, the front elevation will be preserved.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, this is built, I forget, 1932 or so, 36. This was,
36.
yeah, this originally was supposed to be a very large subdivision called Hampton Manor. And 1929, they decided to have a new school in Bridgehampton, and it wound up that the new school took up half the subdivision that was planned. So only the houses on Lockwood Avenue, by the subdivision, I think his name was Harry Lockwood, who made the subdivision for Hampton Manor. In any case, the houses here were basically populated throughout the 1930s and into 1940. Of recent times, they've been some of them have been renovated, and we have visited a property here and there over a period of time, but some of them have been made bigger as well. And it's a characteristic of the change of lifestyle out here, that smaller buildings built by more modest people, modest means, now being upgraded by people with greater means for greater spaces. From what I looked at, I didn't see anything that violates the character of the neighborhood and isn't compatible with the existing character of the house. The house was originally built by a gentleman named Charles Field, and the Field family, I think he would be probably an uncle to Assemblyman Fred Field. I think Charles Field came out of Sag Harbor. So in any case, that's probably and it remained in the Field family. The children of the Fields, Carlton and Mary Ellen Field, they inherited the house and kept it for many years after their parents died. Then was sold maybe in the 1970s to a new party. But I have no objections to what is proposed. I don't know if there's comments or thoughts from someone else.
No objection.
No.
See, no objection either.
All right, fine, and I will send a response in for Lockwood Avenue. 24 Pasture. Seems like everybody has had waterfront this week. I don't know what happened there. Let me try this again. This is kind of a
interesting lot.
Yeah, kind of very odd shaped and off the beaten track a little bit. And the proposal is to convert an enclosed porch into interior living spaces, and then add new porches and small additions on other sides of the house, on various sides of the house. But I didn't see anything that would indicate that there was anything of historic significance on any construction that would be done to this house here.
No.
The house, of course, it won't be recognizable, but it's not a historic resource and it's not an 8KRF, so.
Yeah, and I don't know if any notable persons, I don't have property there. But you can see, I guess, also this is a neighborhood in transition if you look next door.
Yeah.
McMansion.
Yeah. I'll make it a little bit smaller. Any thoughts from anyone?
Nope.
No?
I have no objection, and if there's no comments otherwise, I'll file a no objection response to the building department on this application. Okay. 695, 659, Montauk Highway, Shinnecock Hills. Or maybe according to David, it is 695.
I think it's 659 it's adjacent to 653. Did you want me to start?
Yes, why don't you?
Oh, you're trying to pull your things up?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the access to 695. This one is a little bit more sophisticated, I guess, than I'll pull up your draft.
And I did not make a site visit. I observed it from the road, which you can see only because it's winter time. It's a very minor, legalizing some minor changes. And I saw no reason to call the homeowners with all the COVID things that, as much as I would like to see both the properties, I didn't think it was really unnecessary. They provided photos. However, I did a long extended history, which really it's not commensurate with the amount of work that they did, but I found some interesting things that I didn't know and decided to provide that to the homeowner who owns this one, and they also own the adjacent property, which is a historic resource next door. But on this one, the house has an AYB 1891. However, when you see it up in that photo, you can see it sits on a cement block foundation, it overhangs, and a deck's been added. And at some point, somebody replaced the deck on the left-hand side, and then they decided that they needed to replace there on the, if you look at the left one, there's cement block pillars propped underneath that kitchen that extends. They decided that they needed to support that, and they used wooden posts. And at that point, they were told they needed to come to us before they could get this legalized. And I would have actually passed on it, but because of the age of the house and being in a significant area, which is close to the William Merritt Chase house, and I need to change the arrow on the map. David pointed out on my one map, I incorrectly labeled that one property. But AKRF put this one in the table, and they said they thought it had been relocated on the cement block, but that it was likely a carriage house or accessory structure to the William Merritt Chase house. And I wasn't able to get into it's Hope Sandro and her husband owned this property and also the property next door. She has a website, and I was blocked on everything but my phone. And after I did the research, I was able to get into it. And they're actually using the information from the AKRF saying, oh, I guess it's a carriage house from the William Merritt Chase house that was moved here. Well, I guess I didn't realize there was a Colt estate. I think Hope Sandro did, because she included a little bit in that on her website. However, if a house has been relocated, we're not sure from quite where, but I assume it was once also on the Colt estate. And the Colt estate goes back to 1891 when a young woman who was about 21 years old, who came from a wealthy family, and I won't go into details, but her father was wealthy. He came from wealthy parents. And several years before the father's death, either Miss Jane Barrow Colt, received her inheritance or was given money, but she purchased this property. And there is a deed, which I didn't include. I think the applicant has that. Yep. Yeah, right there where the arrow is. It says, on that one, it says William N. Colt, but I think that was a Scrivener error because there's no William that I know of associated. Jane's father was Morgan Colt, Morgan Gibbs Colt. And I think because of her age, and she was married her whole life, and her sister was unmarried, that for a while it was under M. Colt, which would be Morgan Colt, her father's name. And even though he passed away, I think around maybe 98, it continues to be in his name, clear up to 1916 on a lot of the maps. But she purchased the property, the deed. Samuel Parish signs it. It's the Long Island Improvement Company, the people that were developing that whole area. And I didn't find any article that she had the house built, but the property is described as a 6.5 acre property. And as you flip through, that is exactly the area. If you combine the current properties, come to almost exactly that. But she had a house built there. She and her sister resided there, or they had Edwina posting out to visit them. There were articles. They were on the social registers. Jane was very interested in gardening. She was on the gardening tour. And also she went to the garden clubs and won awards. And those were the most significant things I found that they did while they were out here. But she owned the property from 1891 until 1946. And she sold the property. She paid $2,500 for it, according to the deed. And she sold it for $3,000 to a Joseph Shifter, who had other properties, a number of other properties he owned in Bays, and along with a restaurant. He seemed to be a speculator. He sold it 4 months later to Francis J. Cervolo from Fosse Estate for $15,000. And he seems to be the person who subdivided the property. So there we are. We finally, by 1924, you've got Jane Colt there, and you can see her parcel. That's on the 1925 subdivision map. But that is the section that includes the subject property along with the property to the east, that 653, where there's another carriage house that most likely was part of the Colt estate also. So she sold it, and in around 1948, and you can see the parcel, the general area. I included the 1930 map that showed the parcel. The town actually delineates more where it is. I thought the applicant could probably look at this and possibly determine where the house came from, I guess, if you studied it long enough. But if you look over on the 1930 map, over on the left, you see a little dip in the road. That seems to be where the Colt estate, the main estate, was, up a little bit. And there's a big dip go down right about where the dark area is, right there. That is where I think it is. But going down toward the road, she had gardens that were terraced. And I drove on the Peconic Road, and you can see, actually, I've never looked at them, but there are cement walls down there. And the applicant had those on our website saying that they were remains of the garden, but I wouldn't have known they were there. But the house was there. There were gardens. There appeared to be, at least there were 2 other houses, because there was a fire in 1951 and that house was demolished. They said some type of, they thought it was a cigarette on Peconic Bay, and the winds blew and wiped the house out, but that there were 2 remaining structures left on the property. So I would deduce that one of them is the 653 and the other one, 659, and the other was 653. But in 1948, the Francis J. Cervolo sold the property to Marvin and Madeline Schoenberger. And they occupied that house until it was sold to the applicant. She owned it, and then her daughters till around, I think it was 2000, just a year or so ago, 2019. So that's the history. I'm not going to go through the rest of it. I provided most of this for the applicant and for my own information. I learned a lot. But I have no objection. They legalizing some work that they have done.
Right.
But it's an interesting family. One of the census had, I've never seen so many servants and house people. They were in Patterson, New Jersey. One of the census, they had like 10 employees living with them, coachmen, nurses. So it was interesting. Quite wealthy family. And that one on the bottom, I included the bayberry bush because the Cole estate would be off to the left there. And the other one was a relative of her mother, the Barrow family. So that one's not extended. I've got an echo. But that's it. No objection. But particularly with the association with William Merritt Chase, and I wanted to straighten out the lineage that it was not associated, to my knowledge, with William Merritt Chase's house.
Oh, very diligent effort, Susan.
Yes.
And any thoughts from board members on Susan's report and recommendation? Or no objection to the application?
No objection.
Okay. All right, Susan, will you do the response on
Yes, I will.
that application? Okay, thank you. We have Hope Sandro here.
Yes.
Did you wish to say
Oh,
something?
hi there.
Hi. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for your consideration, and I'm an artist, and I have dedicated my time to understand the history of the property because my husband and I appreciate its place in the story of Shinnecock Hills and the original landowners that once the land was taken from the Shinnecock Nation. And you have the pictures of the interior. We purchased it and we tried to save as much as possible from what was there. You see the pictures of the old wallpaper. We were kind of astounded all these years that the kitchen that part never fell down with the supports that were there. So of course, that's the one thing we wanted to do to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yep.
And I'd really appreciate what you found. Because, for example, you see that door? That's a very rare door. And I was really curious if you know the lineage of that door. Because I have talked to salvage people and they said it's very rare to find a door like that. I was just wondering if any amongst you could have any feelings about the door and any ideas about the structure, but it's very beautifully designed, so I wouldn't be surprised. I wasn't surprised by the town's report that this might have been part of Chase's and Stanford White drew it, because the interior is beautiful.
Did you hear any part of my report at all? Or when I was talking, I'm not sure, it's about the Colt estate?
Yes, I did a lot of research. See the old wallpaper? Yeah. So I researched that, and that's from 1948. So the and I went to see the Saravallos, but they had thrown everything out. But I'm pretty sure that that wallpaper is I researched it's United Wallpaper 1948. So we saved that. And the cabinet that you see in the picture I did a project at the Parish Art Museum when it opened, and this was Samuel Parish's cabinet from the Southampton Museum that I used in my art. And then I've moved it in there since the Colts purchased the property from Parish. It's on the deed. So I'm using the cottage to reference the history as well. E. Bowden O'Calt was her husband. That's a photograph by Jeremy Dennis that I purchased. He's a terrific artist. E. Bowden O'Calt was Jane's husband, and he put the property in her name. But I found out from my research that was very common at the time when the men were directors of railroads. They wanted to hide who was buying the property from the Long Island Improvement Company, since it was a railroad subsidiary. Like Alston Corbin's daughter has a name in her house, and Jane Barrow Colt's, here's more wallpaper. Jane Barrow Colt was the same instance where her husband was a past president of the New Jersey and New York Railway and sat on different boards.
Hope, when I send you the report, because I talked about it, but you'll get a digital copy. The research I found, it was a different Jane Barrow Colt. There were several of them, but this one, in all of the social registers, and I included clippings from that, she was always missed. She was never married. So this Jane Barrow Colt I found, her father was Morgan Gibbs Colt. But I'll send you what, we don't need to debate it here, but what I found, I found that she built it when she was 21 years old, but it seemed to appear on the maps underneath M. Colt, her father Morgan Colt. But it was always Miss, and her sister was Miss Sarah Beekman Colt. And I found a number of references in that family. I found her obituary. I found Sarah's obituary where it names her father, her mother was the late Mary Burrow, and her father was the late Morgan Gibbs Colt, and her sister was Miss Jane Colt. And that was in 37, and in 47, Miss Jane B. Colt obituary appeared and mentioned her gardening and her association with Shinnecock Hills. But I'll send that to you.
I'd love to read that.
And when I had the Colt fire in 1951, it said that there were 2 surviving structures left on the property, that the main house burnt down, and there were two surviving structures left. So my guess is this is one of them, and your house would have been the other one.
Yeah. Well, actually, the people, the Schoenbergers that we bought it from, they were in this house the night the manor house burned down.
Right, that's what would have, right. They bought it in 48 and the manor house burned down in 51. I found the clipping when they purchased it, but I'll send that to you.
I'd love that. Thank you so much.
And I did way more than I needed to for your property, but it was so interesting, and you seem to be very good steward and interested in your property. So I'll send that along. And if you find any errors in my work, you make sure you let me know and I can correct them. Okay?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your consideration. Okay. Yeah, I think it's one of the few existing buildings, our 2 properties from that time. And so I thank you for your consideration.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your comments and your added color for the background of that report. Thanks very much, Hope.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to add, was able to get into your website on my phone only for some reason, but not till after I had already researched and written most of the report. But the wallpaper was so very interesting. So that was, I didn't include that in my report because I knew you knew that. So thank you.
Okay. All right, good night. We'll proceed to 23 Rose Avenue, North Sea. And let's see if we...
I'm here.
I'll hope, what happens is I will send your response form and a copy of this history. As soon as I have them ready, it'll be by the end of this week or beginning of next week.
Sure.
And once you get that, you'll be good to go.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
I did go to this house too.
uh-huh.
I think Susan provided me with pictures, I think from 2017 when you and Sheila went there.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think that they were asking for permission to do this work, but it looks like it's all done.
Right, with that, they applied for a demo permit back in 2018.
Okay. It just looked like everything, you know, all the siding was different, all the windows were different. It has a room attached to the bottom in the back. See, it's a double lot in that neighborhood. There's like 3 sheds on the property. There's 2 in the back and then the one over there, yeah. And that's their property, I believe, because there's not as much trees there now as there were in the picture. And you know, it just looked decrepit in the 2017 pictures, and it's all up to snuff now. So it's work that looks like it's already been done. And they just want to legalize it.
Yeah, it was.
They were only asking about the mechanical shed in back, that it was short before and it was taller. But when Jeff went, he said that he felt the whole.
There's a whole room back there that's like 9 by 6.
Yeah, let me.
Yeah, there was a little thing with a lean-to roof that got moved around to the side, and this whole room comes off there with an outside entrance. Doesn't enter the house.
It looks more like a mud room now. This is the one, Ed, that had the faux fireplace in there that really looked old. I don't know if you remember that. It was a dark room and it had this older looking.
Yeah, there it is.
I love that wall. The fireplace.
That's the room that is involved here.
If they just want to legalize it, I guess.
Yes.
That's what the proposal
I have no
is, and I don't find anything of significance associated with this, other than it's just an added statistic in the legalization file.
Yeah.
So do we need to send them a response?
Response of no objection.
All right, we'll take care of it.
Would you do that, Jeff?
Yep.
Okay, we'll put you down for that. Okay, 22 Squiretown Road. Which is associated with probably past events. This property was subdivided back in 2016 or so.
Yeah.
Has a flag lot behind it. But they want to demolish the garage here and pick up the house and move it 12 feet south. Probably, I mean, basically be more in the middle of the property as well. And it was identified as a historic resource. because if you notice, there are a series of houses, all similar size and similar build. And the suggestion was that they constituted a bit of a constellation of like-styled houses and therefore had some historical significance to it. But the proposal, from what I understand, does nothing to alter the appearance of the structure itself, other than it's located.
No, I
Well,
looked at that. Unrecognizable. Garage is larger than house.
yeah, they, what's proposed here, that the house is not particularly changing, but it's gonna be attached to this massive, god-awful garage.
Well, well, if you read it, it says it's not changing, but if you look at it, I'm trying to think. The house is 1,191 square feet. The new garage is 1,076 square feet. Connected to the house, this is after they move the house, with a 356 square foot breezeway. So that should total up more than the size of the house. Then on the house, they're going to add a 57 square foot front porch, which will alter the house. That's with a porch, bath, mudroom, and staircase to basement. There will be a 331 square foot rear porch, which isn't a problem. But the final house is now 1,432 square feet. So the front additions are going, the front porch will change it.
Yeah, the front porch, when you look at it on the elevations, which is the last page of the application, I don't see that the front porch does anything particularly negative to the house. But it's that whole breezeway and connector back to that massive garage structure, which looks like it could park a semi in it. It's just awful.
It's
Okay.
the garage that ate the house.
Okay. If it wasn't a historic resource, I think it would be, and not in the survey, a different story. There was another one done by the same architect on Scuttle Hole, and the house was incorporated, but it's not recognizable. But we didn't object because wasn't historic resource.
Yeah, we actually reviewed another one by this same architect in East Quogue a couple of meetings ago. And it was a cute cottage that had an addition that was really awkward. And she was modifying the awkward addition, which made some modest improvement to it, but it was still awful. So,
This one's just awful.
yeah, if you look at the layout on the previous page, the site plan, the garage at least is set way back.
Yeah.
From the street, but it's still, if you look at the elevations, particularly the west elevation facing Squiretown Road, oh, it's just horrible.
Yeah.
So I mean, normally I wouldn't object to something like this, but I think we should.
That looks like a municipal building for salt.
Yeah.
Roads.
Is this being used for an accessory business? This garage? It doesn't look like it's obviously not a residential garage.
No, I mean, the garage that's there now is
This would be a normal sized garage door. And this is obviously not a normal sized garage door.
12
No.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're gonna park something very tall in there like a semi.
Right, and it's got a door on both ends.
Yep.
I think this has to be some business associated thing.
Well, it's designated as a storage area, not as a garage area. So storage with almost a warehouse opening.
Well, and if you look at the back elevation, there's two garage doors back there. There's a smaller volume that has a smaller garage door, but they're clearly going to be doing something in there.
It's interesting that the house, it's interesting, the house itself almost looks like one of those Sears Roebuck kit houses.
Yeah. So, I would suggest we object to this, and with a discussion about the appropriateness of that particular garage structure in this setting.
So it's the garage storage area is out of scale, violates the sense of scale.
It also looks like on the west elevation that it may also be coming through the pyramid law, so that they're going to end up having to go for a variance for this.
So tall.
That's a good catch, yeah.
Which hopefully they'll have something to say about it too.
Well, now if they are moving this house 12 feet, maybe that's why they're moving this house 12 feet south. And that would then make this potentially viable?
Yes.
Yes.
He's drawing, they're drawing it with the position of the house where it's going to be. And they're showing the problem with the pyramid law.
Right.
I don't know that they have the room to go over.
Yeah, well, the pyramid law problem comes with a garage.
Yeah. Which we object to.
Horrible thing.
Well, that's up to the planning to evaluate.
Right. But there's no harm in us pointing it out.
Yes.
Especially if there are other historic resources in the neighborhood, and this puts this massive garage right next to them.
Okay.
I think there has to be some clarification as to use, but that would be a planning board issue also.
Why is this at planning board?
No, it may go to the zoning board of appeals, but I don't think it's going to go to planning.
That's right. It's not at the planning board.
Okay, well. So, bad scale.
Yep.
Intrudes apparently on the pyramid law as according to the designs presented. Not only is it out of scale, but the facade of a two-story garage door is not in keeping with the residential character of this grouping of houses.
Yeah, it really ruins it.
That's why we have an ARB.
Some people think we have an ARB.
I know. I said that facetiously.
Okay, violates the residential character of the houses there. Any other comments to be made associated with an objection?
I guess I followed it through the planning board for years, a number of years it was there. We knew that the garage was going, the rear garage, that small one, for the 2-lot subdivision, and we never really, we inquired and nothing seemed to be happening with the house, so it's a non-issue, but this is an issue.
So, okay, so anyways, we have a number of complaints about the proposal, sufficient enough and significant enough to object, and I can write the objecting response unless someone else wants to volunteer.
Garage
Okay.
and breezeway also.
Well, breezeway is so long because the building is so big that it has to reach.
Okay. 206 Lumber Lane, we already covered. 141 Noyak Road, Watermill. I did some work on this, and Susan, you had some thoughts about whether or not this needed to be reviewed.
Yeah, it was for a new structure on a property that's not an AKRF. I didn't go out this time, but I remember from before, all you see is the new attached garage. And the 1840 section is over to the left screen. But they're not touching any of that. It's just for the new structure. They went ahead.
Let me see if I can get this up here.
It reminded me of the one in Quayog. I carbon copied you on that question, David, and whether we needed to review this at all because it's a new structure. Nothing to do with the 1840 section or anything else. There are a couple barns in back. One appears to be demolished at one point a number of years ago. We didn't review that, but it's gone. But the current barns aren't being touched, neither is the house.
Okay, this has an AYB of about 1840. The major house. The house is not under really any proposed changes. It's really the site that's there. It has a number of sheds, has old sheds as well. Number of barns still associated with the property. These are the barns on the site. Let me see if I can bring up the aerial to give you context here. Okay. So this is the property. Here are the barns that we were just referencing.
We're not seeing it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Constantly have to be reminded. Are we there now?
Yep.
Okay. Let me see if I can bring this around a little bit here. Okay, so if you look at this house, this is an original volume. A 5-bay would have been about 1840, I guess, construction, old farmhouse. And obviously it's been added to over the years. These are barns from an earlier period and kept in good shape. The proposal is to build a new one-car garage and apartment space in an accessory building right here. Somewhat set back from the road. Of course, it's already obscured by roadside foliage as well. It'd be a completely new building. As you can see, rather large property. This is an area with many large homes now being built, as you can see over here as well. This was not noticed in the AKRF survey of historical resources, quite possibly because of the magnitude of the altered character given the added volumes over the years. But I did some historical checking, and that 1830 version, 1840 version rather, for the house is probably correct. This is the 1838 U.S. Coastal Survey map, and that house would have been here. The 1858.
Okay, I thought it was the first dot. It was across from 206. Go back up to your 1838. I counted that one on the other side as 206. Mecox. Maybe I was wrong on that, which would make this one approximately 141.
Well, I don't know what the number is on the other side.
No, that's the other. I counted that as 206 when I did that report. I may have been wrong on the one across the street then.
Right. But anyway, there's no house here. There would have been a house here. Further up is an older farmhouse associated with a farming family later on named the Sweeney.
Okay. Thank you, Ed.
And the 1858 Chase map has it as H. Rogers, which I believe may be from analysis of the census would be James H. Rogers. This area of hay ground was filled with Rogers, just like other areas of Southampton were filled with Rayners and Tuttles. Hard to keep track of the movement of property and history with so many people with the same name. The 1873 Beers map we have here. The name is Captain H.E. Hunting. That would be Captain Henry E. Hunting. In 1860, he was described in the census as a shipmaster, probably sailing out of Sag Harbor. I didn't do any checking on how big or successful a sailing captain he would have been. Given the fact that this has nothing to do really with the house, but rather it's about adding an accessory structure to the property. The 1916 Belcher map has this as R. Hanley for this property here. So getting down to the nitty-gritty, basically, I just did a timeline. The H. Rogers, William D. Halsey in 1850 called it Harry Rogers. Looking at the census from 1860 and 1850, I think it was James H. Rogers. The Hanley name was spelled differently. I did not find any records for Hanley to follow up other than the map references to him. A 1936 Bridgehampton Fire Department map of the fire district has the house labeled in the hands of Alfred Åkerström, who was a farmer. And following that trail, I looked at some news articles, and Alfred Åkerström bought in 1921 the farm from his brother-in-law, Harry Fay, for $18,000. 4 years later, he sold it for $90,000. That was selling the land. He kept the house and the 5 acres and the barns on the property. So he made quite a profit, and apparently he retired for the rest of his life till he passed on. So,
Well, who was that?
Alfred Åkerström.
Okay.
Fairly big farm, 84 acres, backed up onto Mecox Bay as well. And his brother-in-law, Harry Fay, was a big Bridgehampton farmer as well. There. But I think the style of the house, the proposed accessory building is not out of character with a house that has already been modified and has varied stylistic elements to it already. The house shares an interesting characteristic. If I go back to just point out one thing that initially was of interest to me. This is the road, Mecox Road. This little Oliver's Cove Inn, that was never a road until recent times when development took place. But this house has its front door facing away from the road. And I thought about that a little bit. The house actually is a 5-bay farmhouse, 2 chimneys on the end, 2 windows in the attic on the gable ends, and that, built in 1840. The house that I live in is 5-gabled house, same design, same pattern, 5-bay, and the gable end faces the road as well. Does not face the front of the house faces south to the sun. So I wouldn't be surprised if this house actually had the same builder as the house that I'm living in, of the same age and the same design. But that's also not a question of the accessory building. So I have no objection to the accessory building being located here. Any comments that others want to offer about this project? Okay, if not, then I will respond no objection and offer just the few notes that I had. Not a full history of the house. I think it does deserve some richer treatment if that was possible, if the time was available to do it, but at the moment that's not going to be possible. Okay. Nothing new on the Nathaniel Rogers house yet, but I think I heard that the contractors had finished with it, so I expect that probably there might be an opportunity for an application to be made for COA in order to complete the legitimation of that project. As far as I know, there's no new information on 149 South Country Road and South Road, West Hampton, Ocean Road, and David's Lane, unless anybody has something to offer. So,
And
okay.
I do have a question on 149 South Country. We made the recommendation to the town board that they, review our recommendation for landmarking and do we need to follow up with the town board on that?
I think they've got kind of a full agenda. They may, but I would give them a month or so. Do you think that's wise, David?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
Yeah. And see if we get an opportunity to, would there be, if a resolution were to be prepared somehow to match the recommendations in our letter, whose nose would that pass under in town hall?
Well, it should go to Kara. But I think we have to schedule a public hearing to designate it as a landmark.
Well, it would
Yeah.
not be if the question would be, yes, if that was to be a landmark, the question would be to resolve whether or not that there would be a willingness to landmark it should an easement be offered.
Yes.
That's probably executive discussion with the CPF advisory board and the town board.
Right, so that's a process that has to take a while to take place.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We'll let it sit for a while and check in on it maybe in 2 months.
Stephanie, did you send that report to CPF also?
Yes, and I got an acknowledgement back from Lisa, so she's got it.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll let it sit and if Stephanie's got her calendar, she can scribble it in for maybe not next month, but the month of April. Okay,
Yep,
thank you. Nothing new on the application process issue, which we've discussed in the past. About the engineering report. I don't know if we're going to make any changes on it at the moment. Demolition and construction lists, and I know Susan, have you done anything of late to?
Yeah. I update them, but I send them out quarterly, so I'll send them out March-ish, or after the March meeting. But the other one that I will do before that is I wanted to update that summary, the referral list. I have a couple, like to note that the due is still in progress. There are a couple notes about the easements too that I figured out I need to update that one. So I'll send that one prior to the next meeting, but the others I'll update and you'll get them after the March meeting.
Right, okay. Applications, referrals.
Okay, just a couple. ZBA on February 18th, it's 828 Flanders Road. And I think that I didn't get a chance to look it up because I just did these, but I think I was the one that was to legalize a second floor and a screen porch. I'm pretty sure we reviewed that application and it was oversized and they're going to the ZBA for that. And the planning board was the one that I mentioned last week. It was that 376 Main Street in Eastport, 2-lot subdivision pre-application. This is the planning board for January 28th. And the other one that was on there is the 607 Main Street, Quiog, the 3-lot subdivision. Do we need to cover that referral this time, or is that going to the next time, Stephanie?
No, we need to cover that tonight.
Okay, so anyways, those are the only things that I have for those agendas.
Landmarks maintenance grant program. I'm not executed on that. That's just something I'm going to do. The nonprofit rules for landmarks maintenance grants, which was once drafted years or longer ago, not been looked at the moment. No discussion with the CPF on future easements, but that might be occasioned by our discussion with 146 South Road, West Hampton. So we'll see if we get an opportunity to do that. We do have still awaiting confirmation by Community Preservation Department on executing the revised easement with Madub, because we haven't issued a certificate of occupancy, appropriateness yet for Madub, and that's still hanging out there. And I think they're getting anxious to try and get plans to do the rebuilding that they want to do for this year. So I just wanted to make a mention of that. Vicki, let me stop this share here. Get this we had some little discussion about the certified local government program, and I just wanted to.
Yeah, I have a draft that I'd like to discuss with you if you have a chance tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow is fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Should I give you a ring?
We began to, just for the board's knowledge, we began to formulate an outline and an approach, I think, for trying to elevate the status of landmarks and historic preservation to the level of being an agency of a certified local government. So that's in process, and it'll probably take some refinement of the issues to bring to the town board at a future meeting. So, and Vicki, did you have something about scheduling you wanted to?
No, I wanted to talk to you about that offline. No.
Okay. All right. So we can get an opportunity tomorrow at because I had some thoughts too. I was trying to get something prepared to a checklist of items that had to be thought about. So.
All right, excellent. We can compare notes then. Excellent.
Okay, very good.
All right.
Other things to bring up for discussion.
We had a referral from planning board regarding a proposed subdivision in Quiog, 607 Main Street. I circulated a draft response letter. Basically, the property contains an identified historic resource, the circa 1910 Lucius Beers house, which is associated with the Patton family, which was one of the founding members of the summer colony on Quiog. There's probably several other structures around this house. This house is really buried way in the woods. You cannot see it at all from any of the surrounding streets, but there are a number of cottages and other structures associated with it. They're all going to be on the largest of the proposed lots for this subdivision, and there's no work planned for these structures at this time, and it looks like the subdivision itself should not require demolition of any of these structures. So I don't have any particular concerns for the proposed subdivision at this time. There is one structure that's right on a proposed lot line. It is a small frame barn, which I took a look at over the weekend. It is all modern construction, plywood and asphalt shingles and concrete block foundation, et cetera. There is nothing historic about that particular structure. So if this subdivision results in the demolition of that structure, I don't think it poses any particular concern. I do want to, as Susan noted when she reviewed it, draw the planning board's attention to the fact that the historic resource is present on one of the proposed lots, and if there's any demolition or construction proposed for that lot, that we would need to review that application at that time. I also noted that the property has been for sale for a while, but specifically the lot that includes these historic resources is being actively marketed. There was an open house going on over the weekend. So I expect we will see this property again.
Okay, sounds good. And I, support all the points that you made in the letter. So I don't know if other board members have comments to make. Otherwise, I think it's something that can be forwarded.
Okay, good. Yeah, the public hearing on this subdivision is next week, so I would like it to get it to the planning board before that.
Okay, very good. Very good.
Good.
All right, do we have other matters to cover? If not, can we let Charles go home?
Yes.
I didn't think it was that simple.
Okay, well, if there's no other business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all